Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you for making the time to join us in today's webinar. And I know it's always difficult to find a bit of space in everybody's busy diaries, but I do think this is quite an important discussion. And we are very thankful to be sharing some of our experiences with the audience that's present. So thank you again for making the time. We really want to make sure that this is an interactive session. So please feel free to jump in with questions or as as we progress through the presentation or the discussion. We're definitely not going to try and bore you with a PowerPoint. It really is going to be about making sure that you get some return on investment for taking the time to attend today. I would really like to thank some of the people who will be joining me for today's discussion. So we've got Bernard Ford, who is the regional manager for Africa, for the Africa region for Acumatica. And then we're quite privileged to have one of our customers who have experienced one of our rapid and effective implementations with us. So Ali Wakely is here. She is the financial manager for Cromtech. So thank you very much for joining us today. We're really going to share practical things that you can do and lessons learned as to how we implement Acumatica, how an ERP can be implemented effectively. I think lately everybody is aware of all the traumatic news stories of failed ERP implementations, things that last for years and years and years, which really shouldn't be the case. And I think we're quite lucky to have Ali here today to give some of her experience as an Acumatica and APPSolve customer. So I'm going to hand over to Bernard to start off with a bit of the first things that we just like to discuss. And like I said, please do have it as interactive as possible. So just the first point we really want to focus on is, what are the things that you as a business or as a potential customer of Acumatica need to consider before moving to a new ERP platform? Bernard, I'm handing it over to you.
Thanks, Arno. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to the webinar. So the assumption obviously is, I'm saying before the move to Acumatica, assuming you have made that choice, there's a whole section about choosing. I think the short version of that is make sure whatever you choose to move to, make sure it's a modern cloud AI ready ERP that implements quickly. Acumatica is one of those. I think we've got Arno and his team who implement and are testament to that rapid implementation, successful implementation. And Ellie is one of our larger customers who moved to Acumatica, and she's going to testify to that hopefully as well. But we're being open today, so we're going to tell you, these are the real life experiences. So in terms of the important things to do before you move to Acumatica, and this is specific to Acumatica, but general to any move. Some of it is specific though, and you'll see why. So whatever you're moving to, make sure you have, a clear view of what's wrong with your current software. So functional would be, typically people only look at functional and they look at bare functionality around things like, we do manufacturing and our system doesn't handle multi-level bills of material, or it doesn't do the production planning easily. That's all functional, that's good. But the other stuff, so other stuff would be things like, are you getting the information you need very quickly through old school, I call it old school last week, dashboards, reports, and the new school AI, integrated AI that's working inside of your ERP. Make sure you have that on your what's wrong list, because that is something that's wrong if you're not getting that. So I think that's number one. Related to that is number two, and that's but number two is kind of, you don't know what you don't know, because you don't know what the new ERP does yet. So having a wish list sometimes, you don't know where to start, because you're saying, I do want this, but I'm sure it's not possible. Now, working with the new technologies, as I do, I'm very into and have been working with AI in Acumatica for the last year and a half in depth. I'm amazed at what I dream up and it can do. So I think the wish list these days, and in the era we're in now, you can really do a comprehensive wish list and put that down, because it's a reality. You can do automation. You can get the information you want very quickly. You can interact with the system in different ways. So knowing how the ecosystem works with Acumatica, knowing that it runs on your iPhone or your Android device or on any browser, knowing you can connect from anywhere, knowing that it's got built-in integrated AI and external LLM connectors, knowing all that stuff changes your wish list. So make sure you kind of moving on to step 5, which I'll come to, get familiar as well and go back to your comprehensive wish list, because you'll imagine things you'd never thought of. The third thing, this is all common sense, by the way, but I'm just putting it down in terms of, so mapping your current business processes. That's something that we all think, well, we understand our business processes, and probably the most critical thing is to get that. It's a bit like when I say doing an LLM prompt to an AI. It's the question you ask is more important than the answer it gives, because the question you ask will give you the correct. And I think with business process mapping, map it out. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but make sure that you're communicating this business process that you run in your organization to your implementation partner, because that's where rubber hits the road. That's what makes the system work. And sometimes the business processes, even if you're using a clunky, not non-best practice business process, that's probably because the old system made you do it that way. It's still map it out, because that way an expert will look at it and say, hey, you're doing this in 5 steps, could be done in 2. Best practice, we call it. So map those business processes out, whatever they are. Even if that process says, I write this on a piece of paper and I put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then we capture it into our current system, put that down and we'll figure out better ways to do it. Fourthly, make a list of reports. So that's also linked to what I was talking about in number 2, the wish list. So a list of reports that you've always wanted. So the reports you need to run the business, the dashboards you need to run the business. Reports are very, I'd say, very old school. So for an example, people used to have exception reports. In Acumatica, we replaced that now with a thing called anomaly detection. Exception report says, if something's more than this, then put it on a report. Anomaly detection says this doesn't look normal. There's a big difference, and that's using machine learning. So we're back to the AI era stuff. So make a list of reports you need to run the business. And I often get this question, give me a list of all the reports you have in Acumatica. I say, well, how long a piece of paper have you got, or how many hours or days have you got to listen to all that? Because that is really not the way you should look at reporting. And that's what you need. Know what you need to know. Don't look at what you don't need to know. So that's more the exception, or the anomaly detection and the dashboarding. Fifthly, get familiar. Now, Acumatica is one of the few ERP systems that allows you to get familiar long before you even buy the system. So if you're sitting here today thinking, this all sounds great, I think I might want to go Acumatica, you can go and register Acumatica Online University. You can Google it. I can send you the links later, or we can get them in the Q&A, but that's available to you right now. You don't have to be a customer to go in and do in-depth training around Acumatica. And once you've made the decision, even more importantly, get everyone in the organization. So our whole ethos with Acumatica is our most successful customers are the ones that know the most. Now, in the old days, last year, in the old days with ERP systems, the whole idea of time and material billing, and this, what Warner was saying, these ERP implementations that go on and on and on, and they cost a fortune. A lot of it is to do with the fact that stuff is hidden from the customer. Now with Acumatica, our whole ethos is make all the information that we have available to you, and all the tools. So the implementation tools, including integration, customization, they're all there. They're all no code, low code, most of them, and they're easy to use. And like I'd normally say, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm not very technical, but I can do very clever things in Acumatica. So should you. So getting familiar really helps that process. I think it's one of the most important elements. 6, I'll just put that in. Include the mobile app in your planning, because most people coming off legacy systems don't have this thing of a mobile app that sends a notification. You do an approval. We're on the shop floor in the factory and you want to scan something, or you want to take a picture of an incident and log it in CRM as a case. We don't have that technology, but bear in mind that you do have it, and you'll see on the Open University, you can download your trial Acumatica, you can download the mobile app and start using it, get familiar with that. So in your planning, don't say, well, everyone needs to have a computer and they've got to be in the office to do things, because 50-60% of your people don't want to do that. It's not convenient, and they've got a phone. Everyone's got a phone. So give them the mobile app and include that in your planning. I always say to people, the best way to get people to use the mobile app is tell them they can do expense claims on their phone, and they do that very quickly. I do. So I'm good. I'll go for lunch, I'll take a picture, I'll submit, and I get my money back. I'll learn how to use the mobile app very quickly, and it's really useful. Yeah. Another important thing here, this is old, was it in garbage in, garbage out, data, data, data. Data's never been more important than the AI era. So AI is only as good as the data it's looking at and the information it's getting. So clean your data, and that's something, whatever, even if you're going to stay in your existing system, clean your data. Okay. So we see data with duplicates and legacy stuff that shouldn't be there. Old legacy being a buzzword, but stuff that's gone, that shouldn't be in the system. Clean it out, clean up your data, and get that data ready for conversion. That'll really speed up that process. So the 3-month, 4-month implementation, I think that's a keystone of it. Clean data. Okay. And linked to that, ensure you have access to your old data for conversion. So when we convert data, we typically get it out of your old system into a middleware. Like typically the middleware is Excel. Okay, it's spreadsheets, it's CSV files. It can be other, and sometimes it's going direct. Sometimes we have tools that take it directly from legacy old system to Acumatica. But access just means make sure you have access to your system, that your current vendor doesn't switch it off, take your data away, say the data is not yours before you get hold of it. So get hold of your data. Now with Acumatica, you'll never have that problem. We have a very, very low attrition rate, but if somebody leaves Acumatica, it's in our bill of rights, customer bill of rights, the data is yours. But a lot of products don't do that. They hold on to the data. So make sure you've got access. Yeah. AI readiness, I've said this already, but so the super wish list is dream up things that you've never, that seem crazy, but believe it or not, we can probably do it. So somebody asked us a few months ago with our LLMs, can we put something put a new SKU into the catalog, into Acumatica, push a button, and the LLM will do the pinpoint accurate description and do a picture, like as if I've got a photographic team in. And we did it, and we can do that. So we push a button now, and it does the description and the picture, which goes into your Acumatica system catalog, imagery SKU. So yeah, so you can really dream up things, automation, things you've never thought were possible are possible. Okay. Lastly, this is general for whatever you're doing. Ensure you've got top-down and bottom-up buying. That just means, in organizations where the person at the top, the CEO, doesn't really care or like Acumatica, and we're going Acumatica, or product B or product C, doesn't matter. You're going to have the same result. It's going to be a higher chance of failure. Likewise, if you don't involve everybody in the organization, in the system, bottom-up being, if somebody's just going to be requisitioning something on their phone to order tea and coffee for the office canteen, involve them in the process. Get them involved from day one, but get them excited about the fact that they can now use their mobile to do that little task. It's bottom-up. So ensure that everyone has this buy-in, so that we have, then you've got this very high chance of success. So yeah, I think, Arno, those are my 10 most important things as far as I can think at this point. So I want to hand over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Bernard. I really appreciate that. I think there's wonderful insights in this. I think it comes with years of experience. It's well worth considering most of these points. Some of it might feel, almost, self-explanatory, but it really is fact that these are important things to consider. And I think if you walk into any implementation, prepared for what is going to come, you're planning to succeed, which is always helpful. I would like to just now to jump into, and I really want to jump into this. How do we prepare for a rapid implementation? And key point for me is not just rapid, but a rapid and effective implementation. And how do we actually execute on this? And for this, I think Ali and myself will have a bit of a discussion around this, seeing that Ali was a victim of our APPSolve implementation methodology. And maybe I can paint a bit of a picture and a background as to our journey with Cromtech. And Ali, feel free to chip in as I go along, or as I ask questions, I'll definitely reach out to you as well, Ali. But Cromtech has been a customer of Acumatica for a while. They had an existing install base of Acumatica for 2 of their entities. But during the course of last year, started to consider moving everything from a legacy platform back onto Acumatica. And in that case, the legacy platform was Syspro. So we migrated 13 legal entities of their legacy application onto Acumatica. And we did that quite rapidly. But I don't want to just focus on the the rapidness of it, of the effectiveness. And I think, Ali, this is maybe where I can, before we go into the actual experience of the implementation, but just to put everybody that's listening and that's attending, what was your experience post go live? Was it a traumatic event? Did we have lots of issues post go live? What was your experience, so that we can say, almost put a stake in the ground as to where did you finish up, after going through this massively disruptive period?
Thanks so much, Arno. Yeah. So as Arno mentioned, we obviously transitioned a huge number of entities from CISPRO onto Acumatica. We went live the 1st of May, so it's still a very fresh experience for myself and my team. And to be honest, like the first few days, I think we were all so scared to even just log onto the system. But it's been very easy. No one seems to, it sounds weird to say, but no one is scared of the system. Everyone's getting like really deep into it. And so far it's gone extremely well. I mean, there's been a few hiccups along the way, but I mean, we've just relied on our APPSolve as our support team, and they've turned any queries around very quickly so that it doesn't have any operational delays or issues for us from a processing point of view, production and everything of the sorts. To the extent that my team now comes into my office and they're like, well, we don't know what we're going to do next month. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, no, the system just does everything for us. So I think coming from a CISPRO environment where we would spend, or personally, I would spend days building reports because the system doesn't give you anything meaningful. To now the system giving you reports, my team saying that they think they're going to have nothing to do next month is, I mean, obviously, hopefully they do still have stuff, but it just speaks. I mean, the system is, and it's stuck with me when jumping back, when I approached our CEO for approval to obviously do the big build, because there's obviously a CapEx requirement and a huge motivation you have to do alongside that. His only thing to me was make sure that you do not work for the system. The system needs to work for you. And I can safely say that's how Acumatica is with us. And I mean, I've only really been on it, for a month and a half. And I'm not sitting here scarred.
Well, Ali, that's
it went really well. And I think the support of the APPSolve team. The one thing sorry, Arno, maybe I'm going a little bit.
Please continue. No, I'm enjoying it. That's great.
The point that Bernard made in terms of the open university and the training, that is critical. And the APPSolve team every single week was asking me how your users were training, are they up to speed? We were not, if I'm honest, but we've still managed. But I think one of the big contributing factors to the success of our go live is we have an individual in one of our entities that is he's just like become an Acumatica expert. So if we feel like in a finance team we're struggling a little bit, or whoever is a user, we can contact this team member at our operation in East London. So I guess, and I'm going completely off tangent. I think if people are considering going live, I think it's definitely over and above obviously the training. It could be worth identifying an individual that is, I want to say like very detailed in terms of like data analytics and things of sorts, and really push them to become like the super user of the system, if I could refer to it as that, because he's been a great help and definitely contributed to a successful post implementation for our team. He wasn't involved in the build or the go live, but the subsequent support has really helped us.
Perfect, Ali. And I think that's useful for us to start that discussion of, if we know where we're going to end. I think I remember the first time, our very first Acumatica implementation we did in 3 months to a customer. And the consultants I was working with at that point I think they were fearful, probably even more than the customer, because we all came from big tier 1 implementations, which could run for multiple years. And to do an ERP implementation so quickly and effectively takes a bit of bravery, I believe, as well. But the point is, it is effective. Okay, so it's not like we take you live and thank you and off you go. But there's a few tricks of the trade that we would like to share today. And, how do we achieve this? And I want to add on to what Bernard said, apart from the, the pre-work that you can do as a prospect or a customer, is you really need to define clear business objectives. Okay, so that from a Cromtech perspective, that was very interesting because we're talking multiple industries in the group, right? So we've got manufacturers, we've got mining entities, we've got quite a broad spectrum of industries that we're trading in. The operations is not standardized across the board. So, I can't affect a mining entity. I cannot expect a mining entity to have the same procedure, so those business processes, as what I'm seeing in a manufacturing entity. So those clear business objectives, and I remember the first discussions I had with Ellie in the office was, they were clear what they wanted to achieve, why they want to move, what was the pain points, and we could easily achieve those. So, like the CEO mentioned, make the system work for you. So that was clear the whole time. The other thing that is critical is to be very open and honest about the essential requirements and controlling the scope. So one of the things I like to preach to my customers, or just speak to them about, is that we do this project with you. We're not doing this project to you, and that is a key thing. Is for it to be successful, the partner, the vendor, Acumatica, and the customer needs to be all on board to chase the same target. Okay, so if you move the target the whole time, the time is going to be delayed. Therefore, it's very important that the business objective feeds into your limited scope or the essential requirements. And when we say limited scope, Cromtech is an example. We had 13 legal entities in this phase that went live in a rapid and effective implementation. To Ali's point, a dedicated business resource, this is massively beneficial. The APPSolve implementation methodology that we developed over the years drives this hard. To Ali's point, we expect, we say your ticket into the training towards the end of the project is proof that you've passed certain exams, okay? But definitely you want to be able to have a super user in-house that almost becomes your internal change agent naturally to assist you with support. And then critically, Alia and her team was very, very key to the success of this project. As we had very strong executive sponsorship. So all the way from having the objectives run through to completion of the project, we had executive buy-in, and you'll see in the next point that we're gonna, in some of the last slide that we're gonna discuss a bit, is we were able to make very quick decisions where needed. Okay, why? Because the structure was in place, and like I said, where possible, have standardized business processes. This is not to say that you can't have different business processes and multiple indices, and that's one of the wonderful things of Acumatica, is that you can have a distribution business and a manufacturing entity and a professional services business, plus a retail business, all in a group running on the same platform. Okay. Now, if you talk about AI and AI capability, the access to that data and the customer information can open up quite a few additional avenues for you as a customer. Right. Ali, then just another question. How big was your effort to get the quality of your data, or how did you experience our data governance procedure during the project?
Yeah, look, the governance was very strict and controlled, which obviously had huge benefits for us now going live. I think the challenge for our team was CISPRO's reports are limiting. So we did do quite a lot. It took us time to get it in the right compliant format. But now that we've gone live, you can see the value of getting it into that compliant format. So our project lead, a lady named Marlene from APPSolve, consistently again also highlighted the importance of that master. It's called a master template. Well, that's what it was referred to us as. Yes. And that is basically the heart of the project, and that ensures that the go live really it hasn't created any issues. All our data is on the new system. Like, I haven't picked up one instance where data take on was wrong. And also during that data confirmation or that data take on process, there's hundreds of confirmations that are done to make sure that you're not exposed in any way where if you turn off your old system and turn on your new, you have gaps. I haven't picked up one gap at all. But I guess it goes to the fact that the data that is taken on and requested throughout the full project, it's to make sure like it's all compliant and it ticks all the right boxes. So it went very well. It was hard for us because of our existing system being CISPRO and trying to get the data out of the system. It's just not user friendly. So the challenge was more because we were coming from CISPRO and not because we're moving on to Acumatica.
Perfect. And Ali, thanks a lot for that. And again, it's about sharing valuable and honest insights, which I'm very thankful for. So from an APPSolve perspective, when we start an implementation, we have a formal internal kickoff and a kickoff with the customer. And one of the key things during that process, we highlight the data and the requirements of data. The team will, the APPSolve team will request sample data frequently, and we build that data set as we go. It is not one of the key things to ensuring a successful shortened project is to make sure that you've got sufficient time to get the data, but also to do it effectively. So it's not like historically what would happen is, 2 weeks before we go live, we start fiddling with data. We started on day one, almost day zero. Is a big focus on data. And we do want to ensure that this is right. And especially this becomes the foundation for any AI capability later. Okay, so we cannot overemphasize this enough. There is this wonderful, almost nirvana experience we want to have with AI, and it's not possible without having quality data. Now, in fact, it is completely unrealistic if you expect AI to add any value to your business if your data is not, clean and accurate. So that's a key part for us in the project. The other thing that I'm quite passionate about is project governance and decision-making structures. I cannot emphasize this enough. A project like this is not an informal, casual engagement. It has a formal structure from both the implementation partner side as well as the customer, and it requires buy-in from both. You'll see later on, there were some of the recommendations we make from a meeting perspective, a decision-making structure. All of this is quite key, okay? And it really needs to ensure that the objectives that is clearly defined and in which is translated in the project initiation documentation, that is achieved and supported by the governance structure. It's pointless if we don't end up working towards that clearly defined business objectives, and everything else needs to feed that. Okay. The other key thing is, and again, this is not a where we claim that you shouldn't customize. That is one of the strongest characteristics of Acumatica, is the fact that it's highly flexible and configurable and does allow for customizations. But we do need to have criteria which we track through a Moscow document, must have, should have, could have, and won't have requirements. Should we want to do customization, does it fit into what was point 2, the essential requirements? So fully agree, at times customizations are required. Yes, Acumatica allows us to customize, but to have an effective go live in a rapid time frame, you do need to realize that some customizations might become a phase 2 and will be qualified and assessed accordingly. Okay. Going back to something that Bernard and Ali has already discussed quite extensively, is planning your user training and change management. So together with the data effort that APPSolve drives during an implementation, also from day zero, we set up the demo environment for the new users to start their training. It is a key thing for us. ERP implementations fails because of 2 things mainly. In my opinion, but the first one is quality of data, and the second one is user adoption. So if users are unfamiliar with the system, they will reject using the utilization of it, and they will revert back to whatever they used in the past. So that's a key thing that needs to, and 3 to 4 months for an implementation is sufficient time for customers to use the the Acumatica university training, and to be able to get skilled up, and they are able to then also be familiar with the system, which helps with user adoption. And then another thing to close out a project, the key thing for us is to have a detailed cutover plan. The go live event, one of the things that my team will know that I scream on the soapbox often is that a go live is not an event of chaos. Okay, it is a controlled event. It is an event that needs to be monitored and managed effectively, and it has detailed steps because we need to configure, we need to decide when does your last transaction gets processed in your legacy system. When do we do migration? What data needs to be provided by when? And to Bernard's earlier point, access to that data is a key thing, because even though we had 3 or 4 months to build up to the go live week or the go live weekend, what ends up happening is now we're going to need accurate and a full set of data quite rapidly. So again, even though it sounds like 4 months is unrealistic, or even shorter period, we have customers that of a similar size to Cromtech that we've done in a shorter time frame. The reality is it is not a uncontrolled, let's just switch you on and go. It is a buy-in from everybody, and we control this process. Ali, just a quick thing, if you can maybe just highlight, if you feel comfortable, 2 or 3 items that you feel that really takes the pain you experienced on your legacy system to the benefit you're getting from Acumatica. That's worth noting to this audience today.
Yeah, thanks, Arno. There's actually just 2 comments I want to make before that. So,
perfect.
To your point with, and this is me coming from a CISPRO background. I don't know. I know obviously the attendees, I don't know what background they're coming from, but to your mention that, we want to try, you guys do the project, you want to limit as many customizations as possible. So when that was told to me, I was like, oh shit, because there's so many functionalities that CISPRO doesn't do that I want. But I think, like, if I look at our project, I think we did, I don't even remember, I think we ended up only doing 1 customization because the base functionalities of Acumatica are like so broad that a lot of what I couldn't achieve out of our current system is it's standard in Acumatica. So that's just one thing. And it also could, this other point could also be mentioned later, but to your cut over that it's not chaos, it's like planned and organized. Like, I think that's just one thing I was absolutely petrified about cutover weekend because you obviously have to get everything and turn your old system on, off and turn your new system on. And I think the thing that's worth mentioning there is you obviously develop a cutover plan, but as most things don't go according to plan. And in our situation, we were tracking behind on certain deliverables. But that's where it was really meaningful with APPSolve, because I phoned our project lead and I was like, look, I'm struggling here. Like, we need to adjust the plan. Can we do X, Y, and Z? And there was always room for that discussion to make sure we didn't add risk to the project. We would still go live and we could adapt the cutover plan so that she could pull the resources around as much as she needed to, so that still when we needed to go live, all the data was in the system. So that's just something worth mentioning. But look, I think back to Arno's point, I think the thing for me that is really, I think 2 points that have been a big game changer with us. So it is the fact that the system is doing a lot more for us. So my team is not spending excessive time processing invoices and processing payments and everything of the sort, because the efficiency is changed significantly. It gives them the ability to actually think about what they're doing and reviewing what they're doing. So that in itself will result in, more accurate reporting and picking up any unusual transactions quicker, which is obviously very meaningful for our team. I think also the one thing that is always a pain in anything finance related is auditors, in terms of when they come once a year.
Yeah.
And that's also, so as much as there's a daily efficiencies being created, the nice thing about what we've seen is you can literally save everything on Acumatica. So when the audit comes around, you give that also another thing, the Acumatica, it's not user limited. So when the audit comes at the end of this year, you can give your auditors user access and off they go. They don't need to basically irritate my team and request loads of samples and everything of the sorts because everything's on the system. So that is like two things that for me very meaningful. And then from a reporting point of view, there's lots of like, and I'm probably going to use the wrong terms here, I know, but lots of like plugins into Acumatica
Yes.
from a reporting point of view, and lots of like meaningful additional tools over and above their baseline, obviously
Correct.
reporting, which is good as it is. And so it also we can get reports out to our shareholders a lot quicker and a lot more detailed, which obviously helps us a lot. I mean, we're a company, like Anna mentioned, there was 13 companies that were brought on board. But I mean, in the past year, we've acquired 7. So we moved quite fast. And that's also the challenge I had in the old system is you couldn't just easily add a company. And like that for me is very important. Like if we buy a company, I need to bring it onto an accounting system. I need it to go into my console. I need everything to work. Like that also for us, you pay one, and I don't know if you mentioned this later, or I could also, probably going to use the wrong terms, but you have one tenant, which is basically like your group. So if your group goes and adds another 2 entities in a month's time, you're not going to be whacked with another license fee. You may obviously need to pay, I don't know, bold customization for the requirements of those entities. But that's also been super critical for me because, you know, in like the next few weeks, we're closing on another deal. I need to bring that company in. And I don't want a schlep of having to run it in a different system. You just basically create a new company in your tenant. So that's also been a big game changer for us because it helps me with consolidated reporting of our group.
Ali, thank you very much again for candidly sharing your experience and what you've had. I think what I really like about the Crontic story is, you know, I'm quite passionate and a big driver, and Bernard knows this from the start with me, is that, you know, I feel that a project that runs longer than 6 months loses its relevance. So I push quite hard to have any project that the APPSolve team is involved in, to have it rapidly deployed and effectively deployed. But what is key for me to always hear is that even though it went quick and yes, it was disruptive, you get value afterwards. Okay, so we've got a tried and tested recipe that works, and if we follow this recipe, the cake that comes out of the bakery at the end, you know, is a decent cake that you can expand on. So that's always nice to hear. All right, so you know, it's key to understand, and I really do hope that we've driven this message home quite hard, that, you know, you can move from a legacy ERP quite rapidly to Acumatica, which has a modern platform that will enable your business to grow, you know, as Ellie testifies, quite quickly, without surprise fees that's going to come your way. But there's a few key things that I just want to leave with you is, how do you avoid an extended rollout? Okay, so there's this age-old saying called project fatigue. I've seen it happen on big projects where both the business and the partner and the users are just so over having discussions around an ERP implementation. So how do you avoid this? And I think this is key. You know, if you choose to embark on a journey like this, and even if you have quite a complex business, you know, the implementation timeframe can be and has to be adjusted to your availability and requirements. But key things that you do need to consider is you need to be able to make decisions quickly. It's a major blocker for anybody if we can't make decisions quickly. It is important that you as the customer delegate decision-making authority to the right people if you need to make a decision. There will be changes to your business. There has to be changes to your business. If you're just replacing the system for the sake of replacing the system, don't replace the system. You should be replacing the system to be getting value from your investment, and that will require change. So make those decisions quickly when required. The other key thing for us is to have regular feedback and steering committee meetings. Okay, so feedback meetings is not just a formal weekly meeting where reporting is provided on the project progress. We've got quite a stringent governance structure where all changes, requests, issues, risks, decisions, and actions are logged. That needs to be followed. But to also have consistent engagement with the key stakeholders. But very importantly, in a rapid implementation, for this to be effective, the steering committee needs to be aware of the progress as we go. So we typically have, instead of that being once a month, the steering committee meeting in such a short time frame, maybe every second or third week, we'll have a steering committee meeting, so that if more important decisions are needs to be made, it can be made. But also, I've seen in the past on another customer that went live, I think, Eddie, when you went live, Cromtech went live, APPSolve had 3 other go lives on that same day with 3 different entities. And we had to have, if you have to call an emergency steer code for important decisions, do not be afraid to do that. So that's a key thing for us. It is also important to focus on core processes. So Ellie, you touched on something, the automation that we brought from a accounts payable invoice capturing perspective. Those sort of information, those sort of, shall we call it, enhancements that you can bring is key. But it still needs to be focused on your core objective and the core process, which Cromtech was, Ali and her team was always focused on saying, right, we know we need to do this quickly. We know we've got a limited time to do this in, so let's control what we can and then expand as we need to go. So that is a key thing. So if you, these first 3, I would say it's almost the foundation. If this starts crumbling, you're almost guaranteed to have an extended period for implementation. Very importantly is maintain a disciplined change control process. Okay, so what do we mean by this? Is not to just allow new requests to be approved. So Ali was fantastic with that. We would listen to the user requirements. We had an agree objective. If that requirement did not align to the key objective, it was parked on the Moscow list and it was prioritized accordingly, and it can be rolled out later. Okay, so that change control process is not just organizational change, it's also change to the program. And then very, very importantly is to test continuously and thoroughly. Okay, so Ali, you got access probably a month or so, or probably a month and a half before your go live to the system to start testing. Is that correct?
It sounds correct when we did our UAT testing. Yeah, I can't remember the exact timelines, but there was sufficient time to play around and make sure I was comfortable before I signed off that we could basically
go live.
Yeah.
And Ali, that's an important thing that you sign off, is not to be afraid to say no if you're not ready to go live. Okay, and it's also, my background is delivering ERP projects, and I often feel that we are afraid to say no, where in fact a no at the right time could save a lot of pain later. So if you don't have sufficient time to test and you don't feel the system is ready for go live, say no. And that is an important thing, is to address that. But it's also important that not just a formal testing structure is followed, that the team is allowed to go back to their desks and test some of their real life scenarios as well, to make sure that they are familiar with the system.
Yeah, I know, sorry, I'm just going to jump in here. I think the one thing to add to that was super helpful, and it's to the point you made earlier, is like basically from day one, you guys start to like pull, or you request like our data, which is obviously what happened. So when you're testing, like, you know what the outcome needs to be because it's your data, and which is helpful from a testing environment. It's not like you give dummy data and dummy customers and dummy transactions. It's your actual data, so you can confirm if the outcome is actually what it should be, which I found very helpful.
Perfect. Ali, I really appreciate that. I think that covers everything that we wanted to cover. It would be lovely to, if you can scan this QR code and book a meeting with us. It would be fantastic to have follow-up discussions. But maybe I'll open up the floor for if you've got any questions at this point in time. Is there any questions in the Q&A section?
Just checking the chat. There's no questions I can see here. Don't be shy. If you've got a question, or even if it's a difficult question, feel free to ask. Your time to ask. if you have any
Otherwise,
concerns
more
about.
than
Yeah, otherwise, yeah, book a one-on-one with Arno. Yeah, I think just what Arno, so one of the nuggets of what Arno was saying there is that what Arno's always said, and his team, so at APPSolve as a broader team, that they're geared for rapid implementation, and they actually do execute on that. And it's kind of the standard for Acumatica globally. So implementations should never take longer than 6 months. It's become the norm to take longer for complex ERP. And I think the fastest implementation I've seen APPSolve, Arno and his team do was a couple of weeks, I think. Was it, Arno? You're one of the very fast ones.
yes.
Yeah, and that's becoming, you know, not the impossible as well. With the AI assistance we're starting to bring in, it's going to get quicker. So I think if anyone's got any, I see somebody asked for if you to mail them, so you can just note that down. You'll get it on that. We'll pass that on from Sharon. That's Lucy. Will mail you for sure. Yeah. So no questions from anybody. You're welcome to unmute. I think you can unmute. Otherwise,
yeah, should be able to.
Otherwise, please book a session with Arno and his team.
Yeah, and we're happy to share the recording afterwards also, if you guys want it.
Great, thanks, Sharon.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody, and have a lovely rest of your day. And Ellie, thanks again for your time. It's really appreciated.
No worries.
There's a question. We've just got a question.
Oh,
asking
perfect.
how long. Okay, so somebody's just asking a question. I'll pick it up for you, Arno.
Sure.
Chat. Francois was asking, how long does a full-fledged manufacturing company take?
Discrete or process?
George, you can just type in the chat there. Is it discrete or process manufacturing? So are you making food, pharmaceuticals, or other? Or mixed mode? Are you doing, you know, both?
So happy to answer that question in broad terms. A typical discrete manufacturer and a typical process manufacturer. So with complex bill of materials, if I can, you know, throw the recipe and the bill of material into the same, again, 4 to 6 months, but always 4 months. I would say 4 months is a pretty good start. It also depends on your operations, how much of the operations is outsourced. I actually have a demonstration with quite a complex engineering and production concern tomorrow. And the proposed project plan for them is 100 days. Okay, and that is also, it's 28 legal entities that needs to be migrated with intercompany manufacturing and projects. So, but that's so manufacturing blank number plates. So yeah, complex. So blank number plates. That for me is a 3 to 4 month implementation. That's and that would be my honest answer, knowing very little.
Yeah, that's a kind of standard in 3-4 months. Complex manufacturing, the one you just spoke about, is highly complex and lots of entities. So yeah, okay, Francois, thank you for your question.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good
Thanks,
day. Cheers.
everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.